Zelensky wants to, and Putin is a question mark. But we're going to have to come down very, very strong.
So, what's brewing here? Let's go across to our expert guest now on this particular subject. We have Manjeev Singh Puri, former Indian ambassador to, in fact, Nepal, which itself has been a hotbed of activities these last few days. Good evening to you, Master Puri. Too bad we're not talking about Nepal at the moment, but we're talking about a conflict that has been on for the last 3.5 years or so, and we're not seeing any end to it, only a possible expansion or intensification, perhaps.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Trump is not the only king of the deals. There is another king who seems to be getting his way at the moment. And look what's happening. And the differences between the Europeans and Donald Trump come to the fore. Who's the beneficiary? The Russians. Isn't it? They're playing hardball and they're playing their game from their perspective very well. The Europeans also, many people would say, President Trump would have told the Ukrainians to pack up much earlier. But, somehow or the other, they've managed to push this thing along and pull the deal along a little while longer. Look, the way I look at it is the Trump administration's efforts to try and do something for the simple reason, bring about a deal because he thinks that there is economic benefit. He thinks there are economic benefits to the United States economy in dealing with Russia, etc. This is a kind of different style of thinking from what the Europeans, which is the old neocon theory, that the Russians are the big aggressors and they have to be completely tamed if not brought down. So this is going to happen. Now, Gautam, if you don't mind my taking advantage of this time to say, look, the longer this goes on, I must say there's this little bit of a sting in the tail as far as we are concerned. We've had the US ambassador to India confirmed or likely to be confirmed very soon, good statements coming on that side, etc. But if this thing pushes Donald Trump to the point where he has to say his ideas that, the Russians can be reined in, etc., no, and it becomes a case that the Russians are kind of waging a war against the West, then issues on Russian oil, etc., and those problems will kind of become much harder and more difficult for us. No matter on the direct bilateral side, things looking much better.
Right. But Donald Trump might be saying that his patience is running out fast with Putin, but at the same time is saying that somehow it's Putin and Zelensky who are not ready to tango with each other at the same time, and he's kind of putting the blame there and not mentioning anything about imposing sanctions. Even the Europeans seem to be balking at this entire idea of confiscating the Russian funds and using it to rebuild Ukraine.
Gautam, you're absolutely right. Look, the Europeans have levied a large number of sanctions. Some other ones are being announced today. The fact of the matter is that in the end, if it becomes what might become, the Americans say, okay, it's up to you to do everything. The Europeans are very diffident about their ability to be not only able to defend Ukraine, but also in some senses take on the Russians. So, everybody wants to leave a certain amount of openings out there. And remember, the Europeans continue to need hydrocarbons from Russia. They've been importing that. And, while we've been taking the fact is that they've been pulling in a certain amount of hydrocarbons, and it isn't very easy for them to pull the plug. President Trump, on the other hand, I think continues to remain clear that patience running out and fast running out is fine. But he says, look, I want to make a deal. And in the deal, it's very clear that his perspectives are not that under all circumstances the Russians should bend and that the Ukrainians were right, etc. No, he's in various senses, people would say, he's at best status quo and what they've got is fine. Let's have a look at what we can do.
What is your gut feeling as to why this happened? I mean, the Russians have clearly said that, look, it was inadvertent or some problem happened with the drones. They were jammed and something and they strayed. But I mean, Donald Tusk is very, very sure that this was deliberate, and it seems a bit of a testing of waters was happening.
Well, President Tusk, as you know, has been Prime Minister Tusk has been very firm, saying that the Europeans, come on, wake up, you are strong enough by yourself. And remember, this is something he said when President Trump was inaugurated and, the pull-out, etc. was happening. So he's very clear. And I think the point that he makes, not very subtly, is that I hope my allies know, and he's looking across the Atlantic Ocean, that this was an attack on Poland. He'd like to, play up that thing. Why? A, defense of Poland, that's important. He doesn't want NATO to be looking here and there. If by some chance the war does escalate and Polish territory, etc., is hit, after all, Poland is a member of NATO, and NATO's support is absolutely critical for Poland's defense. And therefore, he will certainly play this as much as he can. How much of a listen-in is taking place in Washington? There may be listen-in, but how much of action on that? Well, you've seen what President Trump said. It's likely to be a mistake, but I'm running out of patience. But still, I want to do it.
And we've had the NATO Secretary General, NATO Chief, saying that it's launching an Eastern Sentry to bolster the posture even further along the eastern flank. And those who will be part of it are Denmark, France, United Kingdom and Germany. No mention of the US.
Absolutely. But, the NATO Secretary General otherwise would be saying so many laudatory things about President Trump, as people say, a kind of diplomacy by flattery. But in this case now, what is the choice that he has? A NATO member state finding Russian drones landing on its territory, which is seen by everyone. Now, you can say mistake, that's fine. But if you're a superpower, mistake, that's also a question that many people can ask. So he's left with very little options. He can continue to do his flattery and so on there. And in the end, it is the Europeans who are having to pony up. And they are also extremely wary. How many people want to put boots on the ground, as you say? Not many. Now, in the years back, we used to all say, yes, we must defend against the Russians to the last Ukrainian. I'm afraid those things are changing, but not changing that rapidly.
And even at the war front itself, on the conflict front itself, things escalating. Russian port, which had been left untouched so far, that gets bombed, and the latest is in Sumy. There is a Russian attack that has just happened or is ongoing.
Well, the Russians are continuing to do their bit. The Ukrainians, whenever they get a chance, they also hit the Russians. The Americans may or may not be willing to go along with it. My own understanding is President Putin is trying to get as much leverage as he can before maybe the push comes to shove. And he's, in a sense, testing the Europeans, certainly, but he's also testing President Donald Trump. How much more can he get? And, wherein lies the price for the price, as they say.
Right. Well, let's leave it at the moment, because things are not really moving forward in any way until that patience actually runs out and we see Donald Trump doing something apart from talking about it. Let's see what happens next. And in the meantime, we have that update coming in as well, that Nepal has a new Prime Minister in the form of its former Chief Justice, Sushila Karki. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador Puri, and we'll perhaps talk about it some other day. The situation in Nepal still very active, fertile for conversations. Thank you. Well, the GST Council's latest rate rationalization has led to significant tax cuts aimed at easing the burden on citizens. GST on education-related stationery like pencils and notebooks, as well as key health sector items including personal health insurance and life-saving medicines, has been reduced to nil.
Almost 33 medications where the GST has been reduced from 12 or 18% to about 5%, and in certain cases it has also gone down to 0% for emergency life-saving medications and cancer medications. At the same time, insurance sector, whether it is life insurance or it is the health insurance, it has been reduced to 0. This will be a great help for the middle class people who will now be able to access, and it is an affordable price now that they can afford